That house is not fit to live in. It doesn't want people.
What is your name?
I started watching like this movie. We sat down, and I asked my girlfriend like if she wanted to watch it. And she's like, sure. And I was like, you know what? Let's make a night out of it. Cause we were getting groceries that day, and we do this thing now where we get fancy cheese, you know, from like the fancy section, like the expensive stuff.
Okay.
We get some summer sausage. We get crackers. You know, we cut up an apple. We get some grapes. Neither of us drink, so we just get like sparkling like water, you know, to feel fancy. And we just have like this platter out, and we just like watch movies, and it's like the best way to watch movies. Like, I'm over popcorn. Like, I want to pull up an AMC and they give me a cheese platter. But like last week we did it for like the first time, and we watched. Have you ever heard of Moonstruck?
Maybe.
It's this 1980s movie with like Cher and Nick Cage. It's
Oh,
basically
yeah, I've
like
heard of that.
Like Love Actually if they were Italian. And Nick Cage like pops off in it, which is incredible. He's like a one-handed baker man who's very angry and depressed. And he's constantly like either at like as far as like levels go, like a 1 up to like a 10 really quick.
That sounds like a Nick Cage role.
Yeah, and it's like very young, like Nick Cage, like like wild at heart looking Nick Cage.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so you know, we had this platter and we watched that movie, and I was like, oh, this is nice. It made me realize I need to watch more happy movies. But we then I was like, oh, you want to watch like this movie like we're gonna be talking about? And I told her, and she's like, let's do that thing. So I just want to let you know, throughout this entire time of talking, I was eating like a king, you know?
Oh, sure.
So I felt very high class watching the 1980 Changeling.
Oh, God.
No, it was very nice. I recommend it.
That does sound nice. You know, some nice crackers and apples and grapes. And
Yeah, it was a good time.
That
And
sounds solid.
now I want to do it with like a movie that's like totally like the opposite. Like I want to have like a nice meal like that while I'm watching Solo
Oh, no.
or something.
I could never eat during that movie, eat anything. Let
Like,
alone
you couldn't
crackers.
enjoy a nice Snickers bar
Ugh, no.
or maybe a nice chocolate.
Nice Salisbury steak.
Ugh. Okay, yeah, some meatloaf. Imagine watching something like Tokyo Gore Police and you're eating like meatloaf.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, but that would be terrible. I hate meatloaf already, and that would make meatloaf
What?
dramatic.
My mom makes a good meatloaf.
Maybe you just
Okay.
haven't had a good meatloaf.
No, you haven't had a good meatloaf. The secret is love. Okay, now we went from Nick Cage to cheese to meatloaf. Well, welcome to the Guts and Ghouls podcast. I'm Dax,
And I'm Brad.
and we watched The Changeling from 1980, directed by Peter Medak. And why did you like pick this movie specifically? Because when you told me you wanted to watch this, I was like somewhat shocked.
Why?
I don't know. It was just like so random.
No, I pulled up an old list, an old notepad on my phone. Was like, it was from like a year ago, like when I had time to actually watch movies, and it was just a bunch of movies that like I'd heard about that like I wanted to watch basically at some point.
So there wasn't any real reason. It was just like, oh, this one.
No, yeah, I just like thought of it and I was like, yeah, you know what, let's watch that one. That sounds good.
Because this has been on my watch list for a long time too. Because I'd always see like that like the cover on Prime with the little wheelchair.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, and I never knew like what the movie was.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into discussing the movie, I need to ask you a question because it's something that I realize I don't know about you.
Mm-hmm.
And do you believe in ghosts?
I don't know. I don't know. I've never had a ghostly experience. I will say that.
You're open to the idea.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be comforting in a way for there to go for ghosts to exist. Is what I'm saying. Because it would be like people died. Maybe they're still around, even if they're like a creepy spirit.
But wait, if they're a ghost, doesn't that mean though that they lived like a shitty life and they have like business they need to? So maybe you don't want to see Grandpa.
Yeah, maybe I don't want to see Grandpa.
Oh shit! What kind of stuff does Grandpa have to deal with?
What skeletons are in his closet?
You found out that he didn't like hide his porn stash before he died.
Oh God, I don't even want to know about that.
So he's like, grandson, please. I need you to hide my hardcore pornographic magazines. Burn them.
No.
Don't let your grandmother see.
That's what he gave to me in his will.
Yeah, and you were like, "Oh, what the fuck did Grandpa give me these?" And so you just shoved them in like storage somewhere.
Yeah, I've just tried to forget them. They're just like in the back of my head somewhere.
And then after you burn them, you just see like in the flames, like Grandpa's like ghost smiling, coming out of the flames and disappearing into the aether. You're like, oh, that's nice.
I will say though, the like I've never had a ghostly experience or one that I've like interpreted as a ghostly experience, but the and, like the weird things just happen. Like I know one time it was after my grandma had passed away, and my Aunt Kathy was staying at the house like taking care of their dog.
Yeah.
And like she was saying that she was laying in the bed and she could like smell smoke, like someone was smoking like a cigarette right in front of her face.
Yeah,
because my grandma was like a super heavy smoker,
right?
But like, that could just be her like like wanting to like have smelt that in her head.
That's interesting because my grandma had the same experience after my grandpa died. Is she smelt like his cologne?
Oh, really?
And this was like a couple months after he died.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's like a common thing.
Might be. Mine was also just like, well, she smoked in the house for years, so of course it's gonna be
it's gonna smell. Like, yeah, and smoke stays in there.
Yeah,
like that's not a smell you get out. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I'm open to the possibility of ghosts existing. I've just never experienced like any kind of like situation where I'm like, oh yeah, that was a ghost. There's no other explanation.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I'm the same way. I'm definitely more skeptic. Like, I will need like a ghost in front of me, and the ghost needs to like write, "I am a ghost," in order for me to believe like that's a ghost. But like, when people like tell me stories, I'm like, oh, okay, sure. It could have just been like, I don't know, like the house is old, or like a wind gust came through. There's a draft and it knocked over that thing. But I'm always more on the skeptic side. But I want to have a ghostly experience. But I feel like the skeptic in me will not allow myself to like. I will always try to rationalize it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I feel like I would need like something like really like hard evidence to like make me believe it.
Yeah.
There's actually a ghost hunting show that like I find like to be hilarious. I don't remember what it's called, but it was on like it's on like TLC, one of those type of networks or whatever. But like it's so funny because like they'll bring in like the ghost hunting people like to like a house that the owner says is like haunted or whatever. And they'll like explain like all this different stuff that has happened, and the ghost hunting people are always like, oh yeah, that's definitely a ghost.
Yeah.
And then they bring in a guy that is like he's like an expert on like housing, like like kind of like house repair and like structure
Oh, sure.
and stuff like that. And they'll say they'll like hear a noise or like they say like a door will close, and he'll come in and he shuts down like every single one of their ghostly experiences with like a really detailed explanation of why they experienced that.
Wait, so is this show supposed to be about ghosts, or is it about to be disproving ghosts?
It's about both. They like give equal time to both, and I guess they want you to like take away your own conclusion. I don't know.
It's like a Zach Baggins edition of like Deadliest Warrior.
Yeah, it is actually. It's literally like that.
It's like, what's better, the team of experienced ghost hunters or a man in the contracting business for 30 years? Who's gonna win?
It's so true, and what makes it funny is the guy, the the expert guy, is always so smug about it.
Oh,
where he's
I'm
like,
sure.
She said that this door closed on its own. This door's not even level on its hinges. Of course it would close on its own. It's like
I want to watch this show now. This sounds awesome.
I know. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but I watched a YouTube video about it where they talked about the whole like show, and it was just it was hilarious.
See, I would also be less skeptical about ghosts if all those reality ghost shows weren't obviously fake.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like the hosts of those shows even admits that it's fake. But I would totally, like, they have like those haunted hotels that you can stay in. I would totally stay in one of those, or like do something.
Yeah, I would too.
Like, ghostly. All right, let's move on from ghosts and I guess talk about why we're talking about ghosts.
Yeah.
And that's because The Changeling is a ghost movie. It's a spooky, I guess, like a haunted house movie too.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, most ghost movies are also haunted house movies, but this is a very, very spooky house. I think this film relies a lot on the setting, and it works. Because the only thing I knew about this movie, other than just seeing the poster on Prime, is that one shot of towards the end of the film when like the banister's on fire and he's like looking up and there's like the wheelchair.
Oh yeah,
that's like about the only thing I knew, and I was like, oh, okay, that looks really cool. I should like watch this movie. So that's all I knew about it, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good, but I typically don't like, of all the horror subgenres, I think ghosts are actually like my least favorite.
Yeah.
Or like supernatural. And I know that's just a personal preference. Like, I've seen good ones, you know, I like them. It's just for me to get like really into them, it takes a lot. But I don't know if that's just like I don't believe in it, so I'm like whatever. But I enjoy, I think, the fun of them. Like, I mean, it took me, you know how many times it took me to watch The Conjuring? I fell asleep like 3 times.
Really? Oh god.
Yeah. And I think a part of it, at least I think, that ghost movies, basically any ghost movie made after like the 90s are almost all identical. Like, they always use the same tricks to scare you. It's always the same story. They just change the name. It's some old British kid, or you know, it's like they just change it up. Like, it was like an old farmer who was pissed off because he couldn't grow corn, so he killed his family. Sure. I don't know, but I like watching these older ones like this because I feel like this one is a bit more original.
Yeah, I was surprised how different it was. Like, the way this story is executed. I mean,
yeah,
it's
more of a mystery.
Yeah, it's more of a mystery, and it like the mystery doesn't play out in a way that you would expect.
Yeah,
like,
I did not expect a ghost to be uncovering like political corruption.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. I was like, what the hell is this?
I was like, is the ghost mad at like the state politics? I was trying to find the connection there, but yeah, it's like a ghost movie mixed with like a mystery movie. a weird political movie. I don't know if necessarily that's commentary on anything or just that's what the story was.
I think it's just what the story was. I like they don't really go into politics that much. It's just like one of the characters that happens to be a politician.
He's a senator.
Yeah.
But one thing that also strikes me as different is our main character John. How like well composed he is through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like
He's
most
very
characters would be like, "Oh God, what's that noise?" and they're like freaking out. But this man just immediately like calls the maintenance guy.
Yeah.
And then he's on board with the ghost thing real quick. And for me, that's like a relief.
Oh yeah, no, I thought the same way because it's like usually in this type of a movie, he would be like, because especially with the death of his family, I thought everybody would like be gaslighting him and be like, "Oh, John, you silly, you're probably just hallucinating. You've been through a lot recently." But most of everybody in the movie is like, you know what? Yeah, let's see if this is a ghost. I'll trust you, and like we'll do a séance in your living room with you.
Yeah. I love just how like quick he is to be like, okay, maybe a ghost isn't that strange.
Right, yeah.
And even when he's confronted with like really scary stuff, he's pretty like level-headed.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know if that necessarily works in the horror genre, but I think it's refreshing in this very specific point.
Yeah.
Or type of movie. It's very odd to see, because one thing I hate about ghost movies is when it's always the kids that see the ghosts first, right? And then they have to convince their parents, "Oh, we got ghosts." And it takes to the fucking third act for the parents to finally realize that it's a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Where they just straight up, like, really early on, he's like, "Oh yeah, I got a ghost."
Yeah. It reminded me, it was almost like realistic in a way, his reaction. Like, I feel like a guy who's like that old and like that experienced in life probably would like react like that if like the evidence was like overwhelming, like, "Oh yeah, this is a ghost," which it was.
Yeah, and it's stuff that's like even like unexplainable. But I mean, I think it helps that he finds like a connection, where he finds like evidence of like a boy,
mm-hmm.
and he's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I realized we didn't even say what like the basic plot of the movie is about, but basically, we just went right into ghosts.
Yeah.
The Changeling is a 1980 film about I don't know if he's like famous, but he's like a composer. He like teaches like classes, and I mean people fill the classes to see him play and stuff. And he loses his wife and child in a tragic car accident, and he decides he can't live like in their apartment anymore, so he's gonna pick up and move to Seattle. And he buys the biggest mansion ever for one man to live in.
I was thinking the same thing.
The entire time, I'm like, why would you get this? I mean, he's renting it, but still. Like, and it's like Seattle, too, Mm-hmm. It's not like he's in, like, North Dakota, where that's, like, the only place available.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, you are in, like, a city.
It probably is super expensive because of that, too.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'd understand, like, if he got it, because, I mean, he wants to, like, be alone and, like, write his music and play and have, like, students over so they could play, but, like, that thing's, like, huge. The fact it needs, like, a staff that's, like, on payroll to come and, like, maintain it every day.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't even want to know how much the rent would be. But this spooky mansion is owned by the Historical Society, who is preserving it. And there's the whole time I thought they were gonna be in on it, or they knew something. Well, they kind of know.
That one lady, I don't remember her name, but I think she was part of the Historical. She was talking to the senator on the phone, and it seems like she knew about.
Yeah, and she even told him, she's like, that house isn't meant to be lived in.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
what really bothered me, and I think that's one of my major I think complaints about this movie, is it opens a lot of things and then just doesn't really like follow up on them. Where they talk about the landlord lady Claire, she like rushed his paperwork to like get him in as fast as possible.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, maybe that's like a sign that she knows like something's going on. Maybe she's trying to investigate for herself, so she needs someone to live there.
Mm-hmm.
But they never really followed up on why. Unless maybe the other employees wouldn't let anyone live there, so she went past them. If that was the implication of it.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. Maybe she just liked them. That could be as well. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I was just but that whole time, that one line got me thinking. I'm like, ooh, Claire's in on something. Maybe she's related to the ghost.
I know, because it seems like a movie where there would be some kind of a twist with like the characters. Like,
yeah.
And I was expecting that to happen at some point with someone.
And there really isn't.
No.
I mean, our main character even just lays out what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the twist is more for the other characters to find out about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it reveals the big, like, oh. But, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward movie.
Yeah.
Which is refreshing, I think, for a ghost movie. And I got, like, a lot of weird, like, Shining vibes from it as well. With them, like, driving up, like, the snowy hills and then just, like, this, like, oversized, like, almost, like, desolate mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything is just so big and grand. I mean, overall, I mean, I like it. I think it's, like, worth a watch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised, like, it's not as, like, popular, because I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked it because I heard about it just because it was like a cult movie sort of thing. Like that's how people had described it. I was like, you know what, I'm down for a cult movie, and I can see why it might be a little have like a cult following because it is. Yeah, there's some like script stuff that could be like ironed out, like we were saying, like, but it's executed really well, and there's a lot of interesting things going on in it. I definitely think it's worth a watch for sure.
It's pretty spooky too.
Oh yeah, it's very creepy. Some of the stuff definitely gave me goosebumps.
There's a lot of tension, and like a lot of the shots are like really nice and well composed. Mm-hmm. It's funny. There's you know the part where like the wheelchair is like chasing her, and it's like that first person shot like from the wheelchair.
Oh yeah, and she's like going down
like,
the stairs.
Yeah, that is like straight up a shot. I don't know if like Wes Anderson like got inspiration from that, but that is actually just a straight up shot from the new French Dispatch, his new film.
Oh, really? What did happen in that? I saw that.
What's his name? Benicio del Toro. He's in like a wheelchair.
Oh yeah, and he's chasing Adrian Brody around.
Yeah, and Adrian Brody like gets in his face and insults him. Then it just hard cuts to like that first person view of like him in the wheelchair, and it's so funny because like the wheelchair's moving even though like Benicio's like not even like have his hands on the wheels. He's like throwing stuff. But it's like it just reminded me of that. So I was like, oh, I wonder if Wes Anderson was a fan.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It was just jarringly similar, and two very different movies too, very totally different. All right, so I guess let's just get into spoilers now.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll kind of break down the movie. So it starts off with them. I wasn't sure if like was their car broken down because they were like pushing it up a snowy hill.
That's what I would assume was happening. That's what I got from it.
So they took a break, and I guess they got to a payphone, and he's like, "Oh, I'll go, call whoever." And while he's in there, the wife and daughter are playing on like a snow pile, and there's like two cars coming, each from like the opposite way, and he turns and realizes like what's gonna happen because I guess one of the cars weren't like paying attention, and it crashes into their car and then just slams into like the wife and kid. And one of my favorite things about like these old like 80s like horror movies is when I know there's going to be a car crash, I'm like, are they going to use a dummy or are they going to cut away? And I'm happy to say that they used a dummy in this.
Yeah,
because it is dummy. It's like, it's funny, but it's like also like really like tough to watch. Because like, you know, like when someone gets hit by a car, you ragdoll like that. You know, so it doesn't matter how like goofy it looks. I think it always works.
It does, yeah. And it's not like this wasn't like too over the top either.
No, it wasn't. You know? I don't even think there was like really any blood.
No, it was a pretty quick cut. You get to see them hit by the truck from a distance, and then they get like pushed into a snowbank, and then that's the end of it.
Yeah, and I really like how they did it too, because like after it happens, it's just like quiet, and he's just in the phone booth, like just not even moving.
Yeah,
like he's like almost like he doesn't know what to do.
He's just
like
shocked.
He's not screaming, he's not crying. And then just like title card, the Changeling. I was like, oh, I like it.
And it's written really well, that whole opening prologue, because usually I feel like what you would see, or like in, you know, like it was like kind of cute to see them work together, like to like push the car. Yeah, like they're all pretty happy. It's like it's not really like a stressful situation for them, or at least they didn't make it into one, which a lot of families probably would, like if your car broke down.
Oh no, I'd be crying.
Yeah, and they're all just like really happy and just pushing the car along.
They're having fun.
Yeah, which you know is in a horror movie is a bad sign. I mean, something horrible is about to happen.
Yeah, whenever a family's happy together, you know they're not going to be happy much longer.
Imminent danger is right around the corner.
Yeah. And it, like I don't know what it is with these like 80s movies or even like 70s where like the dudes they get for like the leads are just like not attractive dudes, you know? That's fine. But their wives always look like they're like 25-year-old models. You know?
Yeah.
Was it just the times were different?
I would think so, yeah.
Or are we just used to only seeing hot people in movies now?
The only thing you could maybe compare to that is like Adam Sandler or Tom Cruise now.
Yeah.
Where, like they get digitally de-aged, and then on top of that they have like a co-star who's like 25.
That's
and
true.
like it's supposed to be their wife. Like
yeah.
That's the only thing I could really compare
it's
to.
Just,
but
I just always see that in like these 70s and like 80s movies.
The worst example of that for me, like talking about 70s and 80s movies, is Halloween 3.
Oh yeah, that weird like romance they do.
And he's like a really like schlubby like fat guy with like a mustache.
Yeah.
And he's like fucking 50 years old, and there's like this really beautiful girl who's like 20 something, and she's like
she's all over him.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, it's movie magic. But so after he loses his wife and child in the car accident, he decides that he can't live in their apartment anymore because it just reminds him of them. So he's going to move to Seattle, where he already talked and has this like rental lease lined up so he can buy this big mansion that's owned by the Historical Society, and they've been preserving it because it's been there for over like 100 years. And and they said like no one's lived in it for like 80 years or something.
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah.
So I mean, this thing like has not been like lived in. And then shortly after moving in, he every morning at 6 a.m. specifically, he hears a loud, constant banging that lasts for about a minute. And he thinks that, oh, you know, it's just maybe it's like it's an old house. So he calls the maintenance guy, and the maintenance guy's like, yeah, it's the furnace. It's an old house. And that's when like John, our main character, is like, no, it's very specific, because why would like the furnace go like make that noise at 6 a.m. every morning specifically for a minute? I think it was banging again another night, So he decides to investigate, and he goes into the bathroom where he has, I guess, like a vision of a drowning boy.
Yeah, because like the water is like mysteriously on in the bathtub, which he didn't turn on. I don't think he just heard the water running.
Everything in the house was like all the water was turned on. He was going and shutting it off. This reminded me a lot, like this part of the movie reminded me a lot of Amityville Horror. Just kind of like, I feel like Amityville was kind of like the staple of like spooky house things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And like this section of the movie, we're like discovering the noises and like the lights and the faucets turning on and off really reminded me of that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that now that you mention it.
Yeah. So he sees a boy and he's like, okay, something's going on. And he discovers in a closet there was this like room that was hidden and boarded up.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like this scene where he like gets the boards off the door and there's like a padlock on, and he takes like a wrench and starts whacking it. And as he's whacking it, that's when like that banging starts happening again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like going in rhythm with him hitting it.
Mm-hmm.
And he even like stops and like he listens to the banging and then just keeps going. And then once he gets the lock off, the banging stops.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes in, and this room for me is like straight out of my nightmares of how many spider webs are in that room. Like, I hate spiders, and those things, it's like caked. There's like furniture you can't even see anymore. There's so many spider webs.
Oh man, yeah, there was tons of them.
But the main object in this room is it's like this like old timey like early 1900s like child wheelchair, which is used in like the promo images and like the cover for the movie. And he discovers a little music box that when he opens it, he realizes it's a song that he just composed when moving in. So he believes the supernatural entity has been sending him a message which made him write that piece of music. And this is where I feel like another thing where the movie just kind of stops. It's like, it doesn't really matter that he's like a composer anymore. I feel like they play that up in the beginning a lot.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's a big composer. And like he goes to class and he has like hundreds of students just like waiting for listen to him play and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was weird. Overall, I felt like his character could have been more like fleshed out.
Yeah.
He's like, there's like nothing really going on with him character-wise. He's just kind of like, his family died and like that's all you get.
And he's not really like, I mean, he's like heartbroken about him, but he's not like like sad or depressed or going through any like mental issues.
Yeah, it's almost like it doesn't matter for most of the time. You see him like, I think there's one scene of him like crying in his bed or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you just need the connection to get him interested in the ghost.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that's why it was in, is that I guess like because he cares so much about this ghost child because he lost like his daughter, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I got from it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I think that would make this movie a bit more interesting if like they got like J.K. Simmons from Whiplash to like in a ghost movie like this, you know? Like he's the haunted composer, and when the ghost is like banging, he's like, no, not my tempo. And he's the ghost is like trying to match his tempo, and he just scares the shit out of the ghost. It's just him verbally assaulting nothing in his house. That would actually be awesome. And then like the faucets are turning on, and like it's like making music with all like the house, like doors are squeaking.
Yeah.
And he's up there doing like the little composer thing.
Dude, that would be sick. I would watch that movie.
Yeah. J.K. Simmons gets an Oscar too.
Whiplash cross Changeling. That's gonna be the Whiplash sequel.
Yeah. The next poor victim of Fletcher just has to live in a haunted house. Like, only when you master the ghost, you can master the music. Whatever the fuck that means.
Because you need in order to unlock the emotional key to the piece, a ghost has to be playing it. That's where the emotion comes from. That's the key.
True. And then the kid just convinces the ghost to fucking kill Fletcher in his sleep or something. It's like, this guy's a piece of shit. Let's just kill him. Because the ghost boy was also abused by his composer. Teacher, man. Yeah.
They relate.
So at this point, our John guy is pretty into the idea that it's a ghost, because it was like a child's room, and he's like, okay, something clearly bad happened. So he's like, let's hold a seance. So he brings in these seance people, and our friend Claire is here. She's kind of interested in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that bothered me that they never brought up again is that Claire brought over, she's like, oh, I have some things that belong to the house that I can bring you. And she's like, oh, it's just like some old prints and stuff. I was like, oh, that's like house blueprints, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, they never go back on it. I was like, oh, maybe it's like an old black and white photo and you're going to see the kid, but no. So I was like, what was the point? But
yeah.
Anyway, she's there. They hold a seance and they start talking to the ghost. And they learn that the ghost's name is Joseph Carmichael and he was killed. And he tells John to find his medal, whatever that means. Or he says the words well and medal.
Mm-hmm.
So John now is 100% on board with the ghost. And he decides looking into like the records in society, which this one lady at the society does not want him to be looking at those records. And he discovers that I guess Joseph Carmichael was a boy who lived in that house who was disabled and had some kind of like degenerative disease. But I mean, considering it was like 1908, he could have just like had the chicken pox or something, because anything fucking killed you back then. But he was in line to inherit his grandfather's fortune, I guess, but the rules were he had to be 21 to get it, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the dad was like, oh shit, my kid's not going to make it to 21. Well, let's get it over with. And just drowns the kid. And he decides to go pick up an orphan. And he's like, hey, you're Joseph Carmichael now. Mm-hmm. Here's this medal that looks like my son's medal. You're him, and you're gonna get a fortune. And the kid's like, cool. I don't entirely know how into it that little orphan boy was. Like, if he knew the whole shtick. I mean, the kid's old enough. Like, it's not like he grabbed like a baby from birth, and like he wouldn't know better, you know?
Yeah, I assumed that he did know based on how he was acting closer to the end of the movie.
I agree.
And also that conversation he had with that one lady from the Historical Society on the phone, where she's like, oh, they're looking at archive stuff. It's like, so it's like, why would, because like, why would he be worried about them looking at archive stuff? Like, if he didn't realize there's anything bad, shady with his past,
Yeah, I mean, he definitely doesn't want them investigating. And then John discovers that the Carmichaels owned another property that had a well.
Mm-hmm.
And this well was like, the house, I guess, was built over the well, and it was in like the little girl's room of this family's house. And I guess she's been getting nightmares, and a ghost has been coming out of the floorboards and attacking her in the night. So she's like, yeah, dig up the house. So they break in, and then they dig up a skeleton. And John also finds the medal that matches the senator's medal. And this is like where like really the story is just all out there.
Mm-hmm.
Where we know that the disabled kid was going to collect inheritance. The dad killed him, replaced him so he could get the inheritance money. And John decides to confront the senator by crazily throwing around a medal and talking about like ghosts. to this man in front of his entire security team. And the senator's like, "Oh, you're crazy, whatever." But then the senator calls up the cops and sends a detective over to John's house and basically tells him, "Hey, give us that medal or we're getting a search warrant and we're going to tear this place up."
Right.
And also Claire had just been fired from her job at the Historical Society. So I guess the senator pulled some strings there.
Yeah.
But
again, I guess his lease was canceled or something too.
yeah, they canceled the lease as well. So they were going to kick him out.
Mm-hmm.
And while this was going on, as the detective man was leaving, John gets like a vision of the dude, like all is like, you couldn't really tell what's going on, but it was clear it was like through glass and his face was all bloody. And then he gets a call from Claire that as she was leaving, she saw the policeman's car flipped just upside down in the middle of the road. And what was the strangest thing to me is that the windshield just had a perfect like circle through it. Mm-hmm. Almost like the ghost just like punched through it into his face. And that like flipped the car.
Yeah.
But it's clear the ghost did it.
Yeah. As to why, I'm not sure. But
I guess because he was going to stop John from discovering, like avenging him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another thing. And that's another thing I don't like about ghost movies is that if the ghost has like this power, enough power to just straight up kill a dude, can't it just do all this stuff on its own?
Yeah.
Like, if it knows who it is that he's trying to get revenge on, why can't he just take it?
I know, and he literally does that anyway at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. John's
So
kind of like
why?
Indiana Jones in this situation. Like how in the first film, it's like you don't even need Indiana Jones. The Nazis find the Covenant anyways and they die. That's it. Like Indiana Jones is useless.
Yeah, it's like it's Indiana Jones and then this John character, just like the audience just portals into this story, basically.
Yeah.
So that's why they're there at a base level.
I mean, I guess the ghost more so wants to expose it maybe to the public to kind of avenge the legacy. That's like I think the only real reasoning I could find of having John do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so.
The whole time John's like, so there's a connection between me and this ghost, so maybe he was like destined to come to this house, and that's why he's a bachelor living in this giant mansion.
Mm-hmm.
But
the other thing I was thinking is that because the senator ends up with the dead child's medallion at the end, right?
Yeah, John gives it to him as proof.
I was thinking that maybe the ghost, in order for the ghost to exact revenge on him, the medallion needed to be with him.
Oh, that's smart movie thinking.
That's the only thing I can think of that as to why he didn't do it himself until then.
Yeah, maybe he needs to have like a connection, like how the policeman walked into the house, so he was able to kill him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
You know what? Let's go with that. You're correct.
Even if they didn't intend it that way, it still makes sense if you.
It makes more sense that way.
Yeah.
So after the policeman died, the senator's like, "Oh shit! Like, I guess I gotta talk to this John guy." So he calls up John. John shows up. He confronts him like with the medallion and the whole story. And the senator's all in denial. He's like, "My father was a good man. He would have never killed anyone." Blah blah blah. And then John's like, "You know what? Fine. Here's the recordings of the seance. I'm gonna peace out."
Mm-hmm.
While this is going on, though, Claire is worried 'cause she calls the house, and John isn't there. So she runs over, and she hears John, but it's not John. I guess it's the ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why the ghost is being an asshole right now to poor Claire. Like, I don't know what she did. You know?
Yeah, she was trying to help the whole movie. She didn't hinder him at all.
But it leads her up to the spooky child's room, where then a possessed wheelchair chases her down the stairs. And right as John gets home, and she's like, "Oh my god, that I thought you were in the house, and now you're here, and I'm freaking out." And then the entire house starts falling apart, and this is very like Amityville horror too, where like everything is like shaking, and suddenly the house is just set aflame. Like the fire goes all the way down the banister, which is a really cool shot.
Yeah, that was neat looking. I like that. That whole set was really cool.
Yeah. And then the senator is still at his desk, and I think I don't know, I think he's just been in denial. Like, he knows the truth, but he's just been in hardcore denial this entire time that, like, his legacy was built on murder.
Mm-hmm.
And he, like, grabs the medallion and, like, realizes what's going on, and he just kind of, like, astral projects into the house. And
this is the part I was confused about. And it gets like, it made sense like right now, but then later it gets more confusing, like the whole situation.
Yeah, because he like goes up he walks up to the room. The ghost leads him up there, and then he just fucking explodes. But after the explosion, he's back at his office and has a heart attack. So I guess he was just imagining himself there, but John and Claire could see him. Yeah. And then after the explosion, they saw them pull out his body. Like So I don't know if he was just like force ghosting over there or what was going on. And also, like, I mean, okay, I understand this senator guy. Like, okay, his entire fortune, his entire career is all based on murder and a lie. But, like, that's his dad's fault. Yeah,
it's not really his
It's not
fault.
really the senator's fault. Like, that's where I was kind of like, is the senator really like that? Like, the senator really hasn't done anything that evil either.
No, see, that's the thing. It's like the story works better if you interpret it that he knows what happened and like his father told him at some point before he died, and that like he's been keeping it a secret. Because then that makes him kind of an evil, like bad character that you want to see like revenge taken upon. Yeah. So it's like I like to think of it that he knew the whole time, because it just makes the story work better.
Yeah, I mean, I think he does. I just don't know, like, the severity of how much he knows. I just think maybe he was in denial this entire time.
That could be,
'cause it's just easier for him to live his life. But yeah, so little Joseph Carmichael is, I guess, avenged. The house is fucking destroyed. And all that's left is the wheelchair and the music box, and of course right at the end, like typical ghost movie fashion, the music box opens and plays the song and the credits roll. So yeah, I mean, John needs work. I think just his character is more just a vessel to get the story going.
It feels like what you would like if you were in like the first draft of the script and you just wanted like the baseline of that character to be there, and you didn't like flesh him out more. That's what it feels like to me. Right. Or because you need him to have the dead family thing for him to be interested in the ghost. Because like you didn't have like, I wouldn't be able to describe John's personality.
I mean, he's just a really like level-headed older professor man, I guess. I don't know. Like, he's smart. Yeah. He's not really like, he's not all that like charismatic. He's not that funny. Like, there's real no characteristics to him. Yeah. But I mean, you're really here just for the ghosts.
It's true, and that stuff it gets right for me. Like, I don't know about you, but that stuff was like pretty spine chilling.
That stuff was more interesting to me. I just wish this movie would focus, I think, more on the house. Because I think they had such an awesome set. And I think it was like the parts that were really spooky, like him discovering that room and all like the banging and the faucets, like that stuff is really good. And I would be totally fine with like all of that for the whole movie.
Yeah.
While uncovering that, like, ooh, maybe like that stuff she brought over was blueprints, or there's like a hidden room that he finds, and that's how he gets like this information, or the boy was buried in the spooky basement that he's got to dig up. But that's just me. I like spooky houses.
No, I agree with you. I think it would have been better if the whole movie was just like in the house.
It's like the first act is like a ghost movie. The middle is like a political mystery movie.
Yeah.
And then the end is like, okay, we're back to like weird ghost stuff.
Yeah, it was all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's a bad time at all.
No, I think it's worth watching just for because all the ghost stuff is really well executed. Like the boy talking like in that seance scene when he's watching he's listening back to the tape, and you hear like the boy in the tape talking.
It's really creepy.
That's like spooky. The boy sounds like super creepy.
Yeah, that got me.
Yeah, and the boy, the shots of the boy like under the water, like when the little girl in their apartment sees it, and then when he sees it early on, it's like it's definitely disturbing. Like, yeah.
No, yeah, this movie is scary. I mean, I feel like movies like this kind of laid the groundwork for like the ghost movies we have today.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff that they use now.
The Conjuring movies, I feel like, are very inspired by. Like stuff like this.
Something I struggle with is going back to these movies like this that kind of made these like tropes. And you're like, oh, okay, like this is just like all these other movies. But then you're like, oh wait, no, this invented that. Like those other movies are copying this.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my take on it. It's a unique ghost movie. It's fun. Is interesting. And I would recommend. So good pick, Brad.
Wow, thanks.
Good pick. Good random pick.
Yeah, I've been wanting to watch it because I like George C. Scott, and I like a good ghost movie, and people were saying it was good, so I figured, why not?
So you're a sheep?
I'm a sheep. Yeah, I just
Follow
listen
the
to what other people say because I don't have time to sift through everything that is available on streaming, unfortunately.
You don't want to watch the 500 shark movies on a Tubi?
No, thanks. No.
You don't want to watch Santa Jaws?
No. I'm good.
All right. Well, that was The Changeling. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.